nowadays there are so many signals that feel like threats, even if we rationally look at them and say, no, of course not. No, of course I don't feel threatened by like a comment in the office or just a short meeting with a colleague where they say something critical, but our body doesn't know and our body usually reacts.
Hello, I'm your host, Sam East. Welcome to Diverse, a SWE podcast. Engineers are trained to solve problems, but what happens when the problem is with your own thinking? Today, I'm joined by Anita Berthold, who is a manager of learning and development at GlobalFoundries. As a psychologist working inside the semiconductor industry, she works closely with technical leaders around the world. So she has a very unique vantage point on how people think, decide, and sometimes get stuck under pressure. At SWE's We Local Dublin conference this year, Anita spoke on practical tools for mastering your mind, where she shared science-based mindset tools for women and allies in STEM. Anita, I am so excited to dive into some of these tools with you today. Welcome to Diverse.
Thank you, Sam. I'm also very excited to be here and grateful that you're having me.
Yeah, let's dive right into it. You are a psychologist by training, and I understand that you weren't really sure initially if there was a place for you in SWE because, well, you're not an engineer. So before we really jump into today's topic, can you tell us about that career journey and trajectory and how it eventually led you to get involved with SWE?
Sure, absolutely. So maybe from background, I did my psychology, communication psychology degree, and always knew that I didn't want to go into a clinical setting or therapy, but more changing the business world in a way. So focusing on development, communication, teams, and collaboration. So the first roles I had in my professional life were HR roles, really starting as an admin to learn the ropes because, of course, a psychology degree doesn't tell you how to do HR work. Then becoming a one-woman show in a very small company of IT services, and then starting as an HRBP at GlobalFoundries. That's now about 15 years ago. And I realized that is a lot of engineer heavy work environment with working with those colleagues, those engineers, technicians, a lot of very high scientific work. I've heard colleagues, female colleagues, talk about SWE at a certain point. And I always had the mindset of, okay, the SWE is for engineers and I'm not an engineer. So I didn't really think I had a place there. So it took me a while to understand, and opportunity to participate in the We 24 in Chicago really showed me, okay, I can contribute. I am part of that environment because SWE is so much more than just focusing on engineering, obviously. Didn't know that before.
And what was it about the worlds of STEM that you were really drawn to with your line of work?
It is a really interesting field because in STEM, we need to learn a lot of collaboration skills, communication skills, social skills that we're not focusing on, or at least most of our workers, most of our managers, they are such deep experts. In some of the fields that I'm an expert in, I can help them with developing those fields as well, so that they're even more going into not just being an expert in their semiconductors or engineering field, but also excelling in communication in all those, and I'm using air quotes now, soft skills.
You know, we've done a lot of episodes on the podcast, and the idea of soft skills will come up from time to time. And I almost wish we had a new terminology for it because it's just as important as the hard skills, as we've talked to so many experts like yourself.
Absolutely. And I think I've heard somewhere the term human skills, because after all, we can have the best titles in the world. We're still human.
Absolutely. That is so valid. We'll work on changing up that terminology moving forward. But Anita, looking back then on your career, can you tell us about a time when you yourself found yourself perhaps overthinking a decision, grappling with self-doubt? What happened at those points and what did you learn? How did you navigate it?
Yes, absolutely. About 5 years ago, there was an open position as the learning and development manager, actually, exactly the position I'm in now. And coming from an HRBP point and also struggling a lot with self doubt, imposter thoughts, I was really thinking about, hey, do I make that jump or not? What if I'm not good enough? What if I make mistakes? And what if it doesn't turn out? And that took me quite some time to think through. I had a lot of friends involved, so I like gotten a lot of feedback, conversations about that. And I think the biggest impact made the question of a very good friend of mine. She said, okay, but what if you're not taking that opportunity? What if you don't do it? Do you think you will regret that decision? And then in the end, that was exactly the point where I said, okay, I will probably make mistakes, and not just probably, I will make mistakes, but I can learn. If it doesn't turn out, I can, fall back on my feet. But if I do not take this, I will probably regret that later.
That realization, was that something you kept in mind then as you continued to learn and grow in your career?
Absolutely. Growth is one of my own core values. Our feelings, our emotions are often telling us, okay, we're absolute failures and we like disappoint people, or we're not, as I said, good enough. And this won't go away. There is no point in time where I didn't have those thoughts, but taking that as an opportunity to become better, to grow, and to learn from that, that was the drive I'm still taking with me.
And on that point, too, when someone is getting stuck in that loop of negative self talk, because we're so used to it, maybe we're stuck in a pattern, it can be hard to break out of it and even notice it in the moment. But to set us on the right path here, what are some signs that it's starting to happen?
You're totally right, Sam. It is hard to notice that at first. Very often we notice that after the situation, and that usually tells us, okay, there's something to look at. I would say, first of all, looking at body reactions, typical thing like heart racing, flushing, having sweaty hands. Those are usually signs that there is a reaction to something. So this could like give us a pause or give us hold. Sometimes it's also reacting in the moment more intense than usual, even like very strong reactions where we're asking ourselves afterwards, why did we react so strongly? Why did we maybe even overreact? That is usually a sign of, okay, there is something that we can work on, that we can like learn about ourselves. Another sign that I get often told, and I also have to like actively manage, is feeling paralyzed, doing nothing, or even not being able to wind down at all.
And are those signs that, to dive a little deeper into it, that our nervous system is in some kind of fight, flight, freeze, fawn response?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly that. Nowadays, there are so many signals that feel like threats, even if we rationally look at them and say, no, of course not. No, of course I don't feel threatened by like a comment in the office or just a short meeting with a colleague where they say something critical, but our body doesn't know and our body usually reacts.
And it's up to us to start noticing those signs and learn how to navigate them.
Up to us. And also that's where feedback comes in, because sometimes we don't notice. Sometimes we think we are totally doing fine, but somebody else who might be more sensitive or knows us very well and means well can give us feedback and point us to, okay, maybe you want to look at that.
One of the themes from your We Local Dublin session was about separating signals from noise. And when women engineers and even allies too face uncertainty, whether that's around a big project, a career move, how are we then able to make clear decisions instead of getting stuck in it, like we were just talking about?
Yes, that's a topic I think everybody can relate to. Of course, like doing nothing is, I think, the worst kind of response because then we're really stuck in that fawn or paralyzation. So I would say listen, like ask yourself, listen to your fears. What are they telling you? And not to say they're irrelevant or over rationalize them, but really understand, okay, what's the risk? What do your fears? What does your mind tell you? And then you can start when you write it down. I usually forget to write them down, but I have them in my head. Then we can start to make strategies how to handle those situations, how to handle those like worst case scenarios our minds come up instead of avoiding them. The second part is looking at who do I want to be? What are my values? Asking ourselves, what can I connect to my values with that decision or with those options? That helps me to get into a direction where I can say, okay, this is just avoiding something. This is just listening to the fears, or this is listening to the fears, taking them with me and still doing something. And I think like practicing self-compassion is also a very, very good skill to have. And as a fourth point, I would say, again, get perspectives and feedback from trusted people.
Those are wonderful tips that a lot of us, regardless of field, I think, can really use in our day to day. Many of our listeners are stepping into leadership roles for the first time, or perhaps even considering new opportunities that feel maybe a little bit outside of their comfort zone. What is the conversation that you would have with someone whose inner critic is loud and is telling them that they're not ready for the next step?
Oh, yeah, this could be me in several situations as well. First of all, working with the knowledge that that kind of imposter thoughts, that kind of you're not ready, this is not going to go away. So it will always be a part of our self talk. It's easier said than done, but starting to accept it and still doing something, even if you do small steps, this is something that might help because most of us think that if we only get this or if we only do that, but we'll never feel ready. We'll never feel complete or self-confident if we don't practice, if we don't do stuff. Go into that conversation and ask, okay, when have you done something while you were really uncomfortable or afraid? How does that turn out? What happened? And when have you regretted not doing something?
You got me thinking with that one. Those are some good questions. Anita, this has been a really insightful conversation. Before we let you go, if a listener takes away just one mindset strategy from today's conversation, something that they can try to implement during their next challenging day at work, what would you recommend to them?
It's really hard to break it down to one. So I'm going with two. So the first thing is learn how to regulate your emotions so that you have space, that you're not stuck in that fight, flight, or freeze. And the second, and that's maybe a little bit fun to practice, looking into experimenting. Stephen Hayes calls it the impossible game. If your mind tells you, oh gosh, you cannot do that, experiment and try it anyways and see, like in very small situations, see what happens and treat it as an experiment. Because an experiment can fail, but it is always information that you gather. So it's always like valuable information. If you start practicing with small steps, we learn how to move while in fear or while being insecure. And that actually is self-confidence, is learning to do stuff even when we're afraid.
I think a lot of people need to hear that messaging. That was very important. Anita, thank you so much for your insights today.
It was an absolute pleasure.
I'm Sam East, and from all of us at SWE, thank you for listening.